Geese, Canada's favourite animal.
Wait, what?
These majestic beasts can really teach us a thing or two about leadership and exceptional teamwork. Here they are protecting their young. If I go any closer, they'll probably turn on me and savage me to death.
Like an arrow cutting through the sky. So you know that geese fly in these amazing V-shaped formations, right? By flying in a V formation, this group of geese can fly 71% further than if it was just one goose flying on its own. What can we learn from that? That if you work as a team, you can get a lot more done, a lot quicker, a lot more effectively. Now, when the lead goose, the one at the front of the arrow, gets tired, it goes back into the formation and another goose flies into the pole position. That's interesting, right? We often think about the leader being always at the front, always at the front. But actually, in what we call a self-directed team, which is what the geese are, people change. When somebody gets tired, somebody else steps up. In a student project, that's a really smart approach to take. Geese are what we call a self-directed team. There is no goose boss sitting in an office somewhere telling them what to do. They take care of one another, they manage themselves, and they get the job done. That's how I expect my students to work. At the other end of the scale is what we call a functional team. Sometimes we call it a command team. A perfect example of that might be the traditional restaurant structure, the French almost military structure, where you go from the executive chef through chefs and sous chefs and cooks, line cooks, down to the dishwasher. All these people are important. When I say down to the dishwasher, that's not disrespecting the dishwasher. That's just illustrating the hierarchy. Functional or command teams often have a traditional style leader. Now in the middle, we have something called a cross-departmental team. These are very common right now at a time of crisis. When there's a problem, we pull in people from different departments or people with different specialities to come up with solutions to the problem. Because there are different people with different strengths, we don't necessarily have one big strong guy or lady who's the boss of them all. Someone in America could learn from this. We don't have a big boss who thinks they know everything and tries to tell everybody what to do. We respect the authority and the knowledge of the people in the team coming in with their own experience and expertise. This doesn't have to be just for disasters. This might be in a hotel situation when you've got a particular large group of, let's say, 1,500 people coming into your hotel, and you would have a cross-departmental team that includes somebody from housekeeping, somebody from the restaurant, somebody from management, somebody from sales, somebody from the concierge's department or the front desk, and you would work out the best plan for this group of people being in your hotel for the 5 days that they're staying. What are the benefits of a team? I know some people like to work alone, but there really are multiple benefits to good teamwork. I hope you came up with some of these. A team can mean much higher productivity. You get a lot more done. You can end up with higher quality work. I know that's hard to believe, but trust me. When I worked in a team in broadcasting, we made a much higher standard of program than I'm probably making for you now. One little guy and a microphone and some slides. You can be much more flexible when you have a team. When one person is resting, the other person can be working. When one person is sleeping, the other person can be doing. You can get stuff done faster. Many hands make light work. You share the responsibility. It's not all on one person. In a business, with good teamwork, you have better job satisfaction and more people are involved, connected. As a result of that, you get lower staff turnover, fewer people leaving. Why is that a good thing? Well, for one, you spend a lot less time training because you can get on and do what you want to do. For another, it's expensive to keep on hiring new people and starting over again and over again and over again. Whether you do your own HR or whether you have to pay an HR company to find people for you. But there is a flip side. We know that. Students know that particularly. I used to see students in other classes often saying, I want to do this by myself. Oh, another teacher let me do this by myself and not in a team. Too bad. This is about leadership. This is a group dynamics course. This is about teamwork. What are some of the problems though? You have to give up, put up, and where was I? You have to give up your independence sometimes. You do. You have to put up with free riders. What's a free rider? Somebody who gets benefit from the team membership, but does not take part, does not play their part. In my classes, I do not accept free riders. If you feel that people are being free riders on your team, just turning up and signing their names to a project, you need to tell me. You need to tell me. And then sometimes teams just mess up. You know that's what I was going to say, don't you? Teams can be dysfunctional. Here are some of the ways that teams typically go wrong. This is textbook language. This will sound funny if I just read it out, so I'll delegate here. I'll leave this to you to read. Would you like some music to go along with it? And the age-old answer, can we fix it? Yes, we can. We fix these things with good coaching and good training. And you may need to bring in somebody else to make this work. A leader who is a coach could do this themselves, but there is nothing wrong with bringing in an expert to help you. And most organizations do this. You want to work on communication, you want to improve relationships between people. This could be crazy exercises where you have to build trust. This could be climbing up towers, hanging on ropes. It depends on the people. And you need to have some very, very good ideas about how to resolve conflict, because conflict will happen. Just so you know, conflict is normal in teams. In Canada, we try and avoid conflict, and we get very upset about it. Same as in some Far Eastern countries. Japan is probably the very best example, where conflict these days is avoided wherever possible. And conflict, if you have it there, is really uncomfortable. Today's theory, we're looking at the work of Bruce Tuckman. He broke the stages of team development down into 4 and later 5 parts. Forming, storming, norming, and performing. And then later added adjourning. That one nearly rhymes. Notice storming at number 2. It's a normal part of team development. Don't be upset by it. Don't walk away. Don't try and get somebody else fired. Work through it. Conflict is normal in teamwork, okay? Normal. Let me tell you a little story about 3 guys. Dwayne Wade was a very talented basketball player, and he was playing for the Miami Heat, and he'd just been re-signed. Chris Bosh, the tall skinny guy, was also brilliant, and he was signed by Miami Heat from Toronto Raptors. And then there's LeBron James. Even if you don't follow basketball, you've probably heard of him. So Miami Heat in 2010 suddenly had 3 of the best players in America, and they'd all won gold medals in Beijing at the Olympics. They were called the 3 Kings, and people were expecting great things from the Heat. The first game of the full season was on October the 26th. Everybody wanted to watch this amazing team in action. They were up against the Boston Celtics. This game was the most watched NBA basketball game ever on cable TV. Ever. And they lost 88-80 to the Boston Celtics. In fact, in the first 17 games, they were very slightly ahead. They'd won 9 and they lost 8. As somebody described them, they're all hype and no hope. After that game, they had a meeting, a players-only meeting. No journalists sniffing around the dressing room, no coaches, no managers. They'd kick them all out. And words were spoken. Serious words were spoken. As Chris Bosh said, we were just looking at each other and being honest. That's what it's all about. And a lot of home truths were said. You had 3 individuals, all brilliant, all trying to be the star. This was storming. This was conflict. And they came out of it. And that's when they started norming. They won the next 12 games, many of them by 20 points. In fact, they won 21 out of the next 22 games. By April the 10th, they finally defeated the Boston Celtics for the first time. It was their very last home game. 3 days later, final game of the regular season, they beat the Toronto Raptors. That put them into the playoffs, in which they did really well. They got to the final. They didn't win the final, but it was one heck of a comeback. The following year and the year after that, they had no problem winning the championship. And they celebrated, as you should. In the adjourning stage, it's time to look back over what went wrong and what went right. And it's time to celebrate your success. Too many teams end their work and just disappear off and go their separate ways. It's always a good idea to celebrate your success. There are multiple reasons for this. I'd like to share one more piece of leadership terminology with you, and that's team cohesiveness or cohesion. The extent to which members are attracted to the team, how well the team gels, how well the team sticks together. So how do we get team cohesion? How do we get a team to gel? One of the key elements is interaction, making sure that people are staying connected and working together. Especially in a time of crisis when people are in social isolation, the last thing you want is people to be completely isolated. You need to get people connecting. You need to have shared goals. Interestingly, a little bit of competition is a useful thing. In that basketball team, maybe they were competing to see who could score the most points in a game. It can be dangerous if there's too much competition. In soccer, if one person is always trying to be the guy who scores or the girl who scores, that can be a problem for the team. One of the reasons David Beckham was considered so brilliant in his time was not because he scored the most goals. He didn't. He was very good at taking free kicks, bend it like Beckham, but his real strength was setting other people up to score goals, sharing, encouraging, creating opportunities for other people. That's what made him an excellent team leader. And then finally, team success. You know that feeling if you've ever been on a winning team. And you should celebrate. If your team is cohesive, why is that important? What's in it for you? Well, you get higher morale. People are happier working for you. People are communicating better. It's a friendlier place to work, and people are more likely to be more loyal to your company, to your workplace, to your team, to your restaurant, to your hotel, to your business.